No, just can you do screamo?
No, I can't do that.
Okay.
I can do a good impression of Ella Toon on a boat, though.
Okay.
We're on a boat!
So,
Right.
that was the reel.
That was that. We're done here, I think.
We're done. Amazing. Hello and welcome to Camera Central Podcast. This is where we get to talk to some really interesting people and talk about photography, talk about creativity, and most importantly, camera gear. I am joined today by Jess Rose. And how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. So I'm a photographer. I photograph weddings, I photograph portraits, I photograph some sports events and music events. And I've just about finally finished my PhD in documentary filmmaking. I say just about because I keep telling people this, and then it never seems to end. But I'm also a Nikon creator.
Nikon Creator. So
Yeah.
what is it to be a Nikon creator?
So as a Nikon creator, we endorse the Nikon brand through our social channels, and we get invited to go and do really fun things with Nikon, such as recently going to Goodwood Revival to shoot some classic cars and some classic fashion.
Amazing.
And just generally have a great time learning from each other and being part of a community.
Part of community. And I
Yeah.
think community these days is what it's kind of really all about. I think you can really find some interesting creators there. And I think we as creators actually get better through being around other creatives.
Absolutely.
And I think the opportunity that programs like the Nikon Creator Program, all of their ambassador programs and all of that are a great way for people to, yes, get inspired, but also learn something from some incredible creators.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like yourself, to
Yeah.
be fair. And, well, since you mentioned the Goodwood,
Sure.
should we jump into that
Yeah,
first?
let's
Shall
talk
we?
about that.
Let's talk about that. Cool. I'm guessing this is a gallery format.
This is a gallery.
Oh,
format.
before we get into this, I
Yeah.
have one question for you, and it's quite serious.
Yeah. What have I done?
Is Jess Rose your real name? Because
No.
that's a really cool name.
Rose is my middle name,
Oh,
but it's not
okay.
actually my surname. But I chose it when I was 12. I decided I was just going to be
Jess
an
Rose.
independent person with a bit of a name for herself.
It's a
and
really
stuck.
good name,
Thank
and I
you
like
so
it.
much. I like it as
Yeah,
well.
fair enough. That's
Thank
good.
you.
Well, that's one of the main things, isn't it? As long as
Yeah.
you like the name.
I do like the name. Yeah.
Amazing.
Don't call me Jessica.
Don't call you Jessica. I will not. Amazing. Oh God, I decided to scroll through everything. Stand the test of time. I'm going to pass this over to you, and let's talk about some of the shots that you got here. Do you want to start there, or do you want to start at the top?
Yeah, we can. Let's start with Stand the Test of Time.
Okay.
Let's do that.
So what is Stand the Test
So
of Time?
Stand the Test of Time. So we were challenged, myself and two other photographers, Perry Gibson, who's an amazing portrait and events photographer based in London, and Amy Shaw, who specialises in shooting classic cars.
Yeah.
And she's been shooting Goodwood for about 12 years. So
Yeah.
she was our mentor unofficially on the day, showed us around, showed us where we could get some really cool shots of people setting up the cars ready to race and so on. But the three of us was set a challenge by Nikon to shoot 5 images that would stand the test of time using the ZFC. And it was a really interesting challenge because I think we all interpreted that in very different ways, and we were all drawn to very different aspects of the day.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. Personally, I was really drawn to photographing women because it was a really interesting day for gender politics, because we're talking about styles from the 40s, 50s, 60s, when things were very different.
Very different.
Very different. And then so there were women dressed as traditional housewives, but putting a kind of ironic spin on it.
Yeah.
So it was quite interesting and performative in that sense.
That's actually a really good, interesting point, because that's something I wouldn't necessarily have thought of when approaching a project like this.
Yeah.
But you're right, that gender politics was a big part of things back in the time in which they
Yeah.
were dressing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's
And I had
really
some
cool.
good chats with Amy as well about how involved women were in the actual mechanics of working with the
Yeah.
cars. And she was directing me to some women who were engineers and drivers, and she herself was an engineer
Yeah.
on the day, I think, for one of the classic cars. So she was
that's
doing
amazing.
a bit of both over the weekend.
Was she in like the get up like this, and then in a mechanic's
We were
uniform?
all in
or-
different get-ups, so that was
Okay.
a really fun part of the day, was that we all had to dress up.
Okay.
as however we wanted to interpret the brief.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah,
it would be really interesting to see what everyone looked like on the day.
Yeah,
then.
It was good.
So this photo, what makes it stand the test of time for you?
When it came to the brief of standing the test of time, it really threw me, because for me, photography, obviously, at its core, the medium is a medium based on time, and it's a moment in time that you freeze, and as soon as you've taken that photo, the moment's passed and it's gone and it's over. So for me, there's a sort of impossibility of capturing something that could possibly ever stand the test of time. That was my thinking around it.
Okay.
A little bit philosophical for you. A little bit Roland Barthes.
This is what this podcast for me is all about, is talking about the philosophy of photos. Because a podcast I had with the guys from Format High Tech, which do filters and stuff, and it was really interesting. Sam Higgins was the guy I was talking to, and he was talking about the fact of when film photos were taken over to America, the natives often thought that when their photos were taken, they were having their souls stolen.
Yeah, interesting.
Which I think is actually a really interesting perspective. But if you think about it at a kind of root level, when it comes to film photography, and part of why, a way, it is timeless in its kind of like application. I mean, this is kind of what you were trying to attempt here, and that's what they attempted with the ZFC and the exciting
new baby.
The exciting new baby is that they're trying to go back to a simpler age, and we could talk about the philosophy of that all day, because I'm fascinated by things and stuff like that. But if you think about the way in which photos are taken via film cameras, and this is something you came up with in the podcast, is the light that the silver crystals inside of the film take is actually the light from that time. So you are stealing that moment in time, and that's what I find completely
describes it as the delayed rays of a star, doesn't she? Which I love that quote.
That's a really awesome quote.
Yeah, it's the delayed rays of a star, which I just think everybody wants to be the delayed rays of a star, right? I mean, that's a magical thing to be.
That's a magical way of putting it. I really like that. The delayed rays of a star.
It's lovely.
It's really awesome.
Lovely.
Yeah.
But so this image, I think, for me, sort of proves that impossibility of a timelessness, a kind of enduring moment, because she turned, she pouted, and then she was gone in the crowd. So it was one of those chance encounters that I was really lucky to catch. I asked her, hey, can I grab a quick portrait? And she quickly just shot me a pout, which I was like, I'm blessed. This is great. This is better than I could have
it's
expected.
Brilliant. And I think this photo is timeless in and of itself. I actually really like it, because it's that sort of like characterful kind of like, it almost feels like a Martin Parr moment in terms of like it being taken, but not really. Do you get what I mean? I don't know.
Well, her outfit was very Martin Parr. And I remember on the day I said, oh God, that was so Martin Parr, and then had to clarify I didn't mean, I wasn't trying to suggest. I meant her outfit. I mean, she was in this blue sort of seaside dress. It was very, but she was great. She was a great character.
Oh, fair enough.
And very confident, which I appreciated.
Yes, confidence, I think, is a big part of everything. Was she actually a model, or is it just a person?
She wasn't a model. She was just walking around,
being confident,
feeling confident, feeling
being
herself.
Being a confident
mother. Yeah, exactly.
This is cool.
So this was over near the motorbike section, which you're not allowed to sit on. You're not allowed to sit on them if you ever go.
Okay.
Don't do that.
Did you get told off? I feel like this is a particular instance which you're like a little bit sour about.
So I was with April Alexander, another creator who's absolutely brilliant. She shoots a lot of beauty and portraits. She works with a lot of models, and she was a model before she became a photographer. So she's a dream to work with, and she's also a dream to watch interacting with other people, because she's just brilliant at empathizing and sort of getting what you need from somebody by being really nice to them. Because I think that's what you need to hear, being on that side of the camera.
I think being an honest person, being easy to talk to, is one of the biggest skills a photographer and somebody that wants to get into a creative field needs to learn, because a big part of what we do is engage with other people, and being able to dictate your actions in a way which makes sense, but also people want to be a part of as well, I think is hugely important, especially important for wedding photographers as well.
Absolutely.
But you were saying...
So I was just going to tell you that we got told off because we were posing with a beautiful little old vintage car.
Yeah.
And she said, "Shall I get in?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, I don't see why that would be a problem." It was a problem. It was a big problem. We were not supposed to do that.
Okay. And
but moving on to this image, I think one of the things Perry and I talked about around capturing these timeless images when we first were given the brief from Nikon was that the thing that really can stand the test of time are people's emotions, people's relationships, people's interactions with each other. And so I was quite drawn to seeing how women in particular interacted with each other on the day. I photographed a lot of women who were there with their friends, a lot of mothers, and I thought this moment was really nice. It was the two of them kind of hiding around the back of a van to put their shoes back on because their heels were probably killing them. And I feel like that's something that's definitely stood the test of time. Like women still suffer for beauty.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting perspective to have on that is, so was your goal to capture moments which like women would go throughout time?
A little, I think.
Because that's an interesting point of view.
I think so. I think that's what evolved throughout the day. I mean, initially in the morning, I'd set out and I thought, I want to find individuals here who are challenging the sort of quite binary gendered presentations that are going on here. So whether or not there is anybody that's in drag, I was hopeful there might be a drag queen, or there wasn't, sadly, but you know, maybe
it would have been brilliant.
That would have been great.
Cardiff is great for that kind of stuff, by the way. Tyler, the guy that I was talking about earlier, he actually photographs drag queens on a daily basis.
Amazing. Dream job right
there.
But no, I think over the day I sort of realised that there was less of that maybe, but there were moments that you could capture that did reveal maybe more subtle gender dynamics.
Yeah.
That's and really sort of little interactions. So enough. It sort of evolved. Yeah.
Awesome. Like did you feel yourself lucky to find them doing this at the time? Yeah,
I mean, again, it was just nice to catch a moment that wasn't overly planned. I did shoot a lot of portraits that were, and you know, it's difficult when you're in a busy place to sometimes isolate a person for the sake of a portrait, but then to just stumble upon something happening was also really nice.
And 100%. And it's hard, like when it comes to that kind of like approaching people to get portraits, like sometimes you get a little bit too much kind of like they're posing and stuff like that, and they're not being the natural self. And I think that's really important. So before the podcast, I talked to you about that film lens, that link here for the video, the Dream lens. And what I liked about that, and to tell you a little bit of a story, when I first started using it, I went into Camera Centre UK store, and they have a bunch of film lenses and cameras and stuff like that, and I was looking through them, as I often do. Even when I used to work inside the store, I just like look through and find some gems amongst the amount of just like old trashy lenses, and then suddenly you find
finding the diamond.
But I found the lens up in the like top left hand corner, hidden away, and I was just like, this can't be a lens that I've wanted to try since starting doing photography.
Oh wow.
Because it's super rare, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I found fascinating about it. But a big part of why it was so stunning, and sorry, I know we should probably be focusing more on you, but I'm going to focus on me instead.
That's okay, we can focus on you.
But with that, and it kind of connects to that, I went around Cardiff and I just started connecting with people via this lens.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Something which I've always found hard about kind of like seeing what people do on like TikTok sometimes here and there, where they go up to just random people and just ask for photos.
Oh, that's great.
Where you can literally just like connect to these random people, and the lens has a unique character about it, right?
Yeah.
But just being able to capture just like completely just like unique people and just like make them laugh, you know, don't set it up too much. Like
very natural portraits.
Very natural portraits, and a big part of that I think was because of my the lens, but like my. So I often like to talk about how a camera and how a lens, how a piece of gear can make you feel, and the experience that you have with it, I think is the most important part. And you can blame it on the lens here, but I think the big thing here is ultimately I was having fun with how something made me feel. And I think that's a really interesting kind of philosophical point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at Goodwood, that was something that I definitely experienced because number one, we were dressed up. So I was wearing this sort of cherry red suit. this very vintage 60s suit.
Yeah.
And then I had the ZFC, and I had one in turquoise. And people loved it.
Yeah.
And it's not the sort of camera I would usually carry. I work with the Z8. It's quite big. I've got a big 24-70 on it. People usually identify me as a professional photographer. But with the ZFC, it was just sort of much more playful interactions that I was having with people. And I felt playful. I was in a silly outfit with a fun camera that was small, very light, that I could easily run around with. And it really did change those interactions that I was having. I think you're absolutely right. It's a great point.
100%. And how important do you think it is for events, photographers, weddings, whatever, to have a camera of that caliber that is a little bit less obvious? Because earlier, before we started this, we talked about having the big boy camera makes you feel badass, right? And it does, and it's important to have a big boy camera, a big boy girl, a camera that's big and it's cool. And then having something a little bit more discreet, I think, is actually a lot of fun because people don't tense up as much.
I think it's quite advantageous, definitely, to have something like that in your kit bag. I'm thinking about the new ZF. And I'm thinking, well, that would be good for that.
I know.
And I'm thinking that would
that's exactly what I do.
I'm thinking I'm gonna have to get one because it's you've laid it out now.
I know. I know. So the video will be out by this point, but I actually have turned Tyler over to Sony, which I know they were talking about Nikon today, but I think what would be an interesting perspective is I actually genuinely do want to have the ZF because it's full frame, so it's that typical 35mm kind of like look to it, but I really see it as a camera that I would have that interaction with, that I would enjoy and I'd love to be able to use, and I think that's an important thing to have in a camera. I mean, I'm not a big believer when it comes to shooting weddings and events. I'm not a big believer in, we were talking about this a little bit before, a big believer in trying to be too much of a fly on the wall. I think it's impossible. I think as soon as you walk into a space with a camera, 100%. People are drawn to it, people see it. There are people who will interact with it, and there are other people that you'll see recoil a little bit, and that's natural. And I think it's just about reading those energies in the room. And a big part of it in general, I think, is reading those energies. I'm also not a big fan of a particular style of wedding photography, I'm going to say, that sort of tries to humiliate the subjects a little bit by being very inconspicuous and catching those moments where it's somebody's fallen over and their pants are showing. Someone's just had a massive bite of their food, and it just makes them look gorgeous.
I'm not a fan personally.
I think there's a good kind of in between of because documentary to a certain extent is a must for most weddings. But setup, I think, is really important to have, because you need to make sure you have those creamy, beautiful, arty shots that you enjoy, right? I mean, and it's about finding the in-between of that, where it can't go too far or too far up, too far the other way. But the other thing is, and when I did weddings myself, and what I enjoyed about them, because I'd like to believe I'm a philosophical person, but it makes you sound a little bit like I'm a philosophical person.
Well, I think you are a philosophical person.
And this is going to sound cheesy. Get ready for some gorgonzola.
Well, we're talking about weddings.
Well, exactly.
You've got to bring some cheese.
But when I did weddings, and what I enjoyed about weddings is I kind of viewed it as the study of love. It sounds that's right. That was some love. That's like very like mozzarella. That's stringy. But the study of love, and I think that's what I found the most enticing part about being a wedding videographer. For me, was seeing the emotion, seeing the interaction, seeing the genuine people.
Absolutely.
I think that's massively important.
And one thing I always tell my couples to please keep in mind is that if they are in the moment and they're not feeling that every single moment needs to be orchestrated, then the photos are going to be magic. Because they're going to naturally. And the wedding I did over the weekend, it was a 3-day Met Gala style extravaganza in the Cotswolds. With 2 drag queens, one of whom is actually appearing on UK Drag Race. I found out today, so I felt very privileged.
I mean, that's cool.
That's pretty cool.
cool.
And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. But they were fully immersed in the experience, I think, for most of it. We took a couple of walks to take some portraits. We organised a few groups, but because we had 3 days, it made it a lot more organic, and it meant that they could be in the moment. Whereas I think there's a tendency now, because we have a lot of trends popping up on TikTok, of you must get this moment in your wedding day, and it's like if it doesn't naturally happen, then we can't necessarily fake it till we make it, because
100%.
you're not going to be, it's not real.
No.
And I mean, I come from, academically, my background is performance studies. I did a BA and an MPhil in performance studies, and I'm quite interested in the difference between theatre and performance. And I think theatre is where everything is fake, and performance is the real life stuff, you know?
That's really cool, and I agree with that through and through. And the
artificiality of those moments that we see popping up on TikTok of you have to have a first look. Great to have a first look. We can absolutely make that happen. But if your dad's not actually crying, I can't. You know, at what point?
I mean, there's only so much things that generative film
like
can
my
do.
dad wouldn't cry. My dad would be like, "Oh, this is a bit much, mate." But
exactly.
You know, so it's kind of. You maybe can't have all of those moments that you see on TikTok, because some of them won't feel real
like
to you.
Sometimes.
It's just not like that.
No.
Let it be, you know?
Let it be.
Exactly.
This is great fun.
Yeah,
I like
this
you.
is great
You're
fun.
cool.
Thank you.
Should we get on to the next photo? We've literally been staring at this photo for ever. It's great.
Oh, well, he's a mood, isn't he?
He
This
is in
little
a
one.
mood. Again, a timeless moment, because kids are just moody.
Kids are just always moody. That's what, but to be honest, there's nothing deeper to it than that. I've got a 9-year-old.
Okay.
Kids get fed up when they're at adult events like this. He probably wanted to go and play on his Nintendo Switch, you know. So it's just, that's all that is.
We should have just had him on the Switch there, maybe.
Yeah. But I do like the little bit of an interaction that's going on between the two characters in the corner. It's quite nice.
It's really good. And of course, you kind of use, like, I would say rule of thirds here a little bit, but really cool. Like it. Next one?
Next one. What's next? So just going back to these kind of interactions between women. But I have to say, while we're on this image of hands, recently I've been photographing a lot of feet.
This is taking a turn.
This is taking a turn. Not on,
Okay, let's do it.
Should we get
feet,
into that?
Yeah.
I just feel like hands, we've done it to death in the wedding industry and the events industry. Oh, hands, they tell you so much about the soul. What about feet? What if
people have missed feet? I think, like when it comes to...
You're struggling to connect this to anything.
No, I'm not. I don't really know how much I can connect feet to anything, but I was going to more talk about the hands and the eyes.
Hands and the eyes, yeah.
And to be fair, you could probably connect this to the feet. We're going to go on a goose chase right now. But no, with this, I think the reason why we look at hands and eyes as a portal into like a character's soul and stuff like that. I mean, it's used in film, it's used in photo, it's the portal to the soul, right? It's because it's how we interact with the world and how we see the world.
But I would argue we also interact with the world with our feet.
Yeah, exactly. So there is this as well. Yeah.
You see,
I think there is a link there.
There is a link
there is a link.
So what I've been seeing a lot of, I mean, I photographed a wedding the other day where one of the brides was barefoot and she climbed into a tree. And photographing her feet just felt natural and right and part of the story. And then after that, I've just noticed more and more feet. There's no way we can sugarcoat this. There is no way of getting around this. I've been feeling drawn to feet recently.
Okay.
For one reason or another. But listen, people kicking their shoes off on the dance floor. You know, heels being strung around. I've got a friend, a photographer in Liverpool called John Johnson, whose work is fantastic, who for a while was really interested in going around the city of Liverpool in the morning after a big night, so Saturday or Sunday morning, and photographing the shoes that have been discarded around the city, whether slung up on the on the wires, you know, or just heels that have been snapped. And he found them in the most. He's got this really incredible archive of photos of forgotten shoes. And they all tell a story, you know, what on earth was this person doing? But it's a much more sensitive way, I think, of photographing or documenting those kind of nights out, rather than trying to catch girls drunk, staggering down. What's the street in Cardiff where they do that?
Mill Lane. Yeah.
Take your pick.
Take your pick. There's plenty in Cardiff.
Yeah.
It's basically all
But
the
again,
pubs.
rather than trying to humiliate your subject, it's documenting that. We can read the story from those discarded shoes. She's had a big night out, but we don't need to put her in that,
Yeah.
So feet.
Feet.
It's the new trend.
I wasn't. Do you realise that's going to be the title of the video? Jess Rose, feet.
I'm calling it.
What happened at the start as well? Feet impressions. And this has been a lot of fun. Timeless though. I do agree that it's a very timeless photo.
Thank you.
But the other side of it is I wasn't necessarily sure if it was just women's hands or if it was like a married couple hand when I first saw it. And I think it tells a great emotion to it. And I think hands, eyes,
They
feet
do.
are a great way of telling
Feet,
telling a
I
story.
think we need to maybe flesh that out a little bit more before we can say they definitely are a portal to the soul in the same way as hands or eyes. But I definitely agree with you there. Something to build on. Maybe.
I could probably come up with some philosophical ball stuff.
I think go home and have a think about it.
Yeah.
Reflect.
Next time,
Yeah.
we'll work out how feet connect to the soul. Cool, and
he was the winner, I believe, of the first day of races, and he was a great character.
Yeah.
And his face was great, but I've chosen to focus on his hand because I love that he was just gripping onto his rolly there.
Yeah. So I was going to say composition on this.
Yeah.
What were you thinking? Not saying it's terrible.
Okay.
Not insinuating it's terrible, because now I sound like I'm insinuating it's terrible.
No, it's okay.
I actually really love the composition because it tells the story without those elements that you would usually connect to somebody, because you're not seeing a face.
You're not seeing the eyes.
You're not seeing all the feet. But you're seeing joy, but you also, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of details missing from this photo.
But there's enough details for you to be able to...
So he'd been photographed a lot all day because he really stood out in his outfit. He had one of those like round helmets on, a very characterful face, deep lines. Everybody had been photographing him.
Yeah.
And I think I was just mostly I was trying to think about what the important parts of the image were.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole... He was important. He won the race, right? But I think I was just trying to work out, looking at him, which bits do I need to include here? So I've got his wreath.
Yeah.
He's won the cup, but then also the rolly, which I think is
really awesome.
Just tells us a little bit about who he is as a person,
100%.
without revealing too much.
Awesome.
But yeah, feel free to crit the composition because I realise that,
I like it. No, it's not no critical thing. I genuinely think that is a unique photo because it's a different perspective on a shot that, like you said, 1,000 people probably took his photo that day, and you've decided to show the moment rather than the context. Do you get what? So all the context is there. It's hard to explain.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's hard to get to in a unique photo, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I was in Iceland recently, and talk about
Fun.
trying to get a unique photo in Iceland. At this
all
point,
so pretty.
It's also beautiful, and it's been photographed so many times.
100%.
And I felt a little bit like I was on a photo trail looking for those key photos you have to get when you go to Iceland.
Yeah.
They get the horse, tick. Get the glacier, tick. Get the waterfall, tick.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of trying to find something else within that. I mean, I wasn't there long enough to look for a story or anything, but
it's.
Do you know what I mean?
I'd agree. Yeah, it's an incredibly beautiful place, but finding something like it's hard to say. Finding something unique in Iceland is easy because it's all unique, but it's been captured so many times that finding something unique is harder.
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my favourite.
Yeah, it's my favourite too. We had a look at these beforehand, and this is one of my favourites.
Yeah, I can say confidently I'm quite happy with this. So you can see on the right, that's Perry, the photographer that I was working with on the day, hanging out with, having a great time with actually. He's a really good guy. You can see him kind of sweeping into the frame in front of the model. So we'd both been chatting about how we wanted to find somebody that was a little bit more naturalised in front of the camera. We'd shot a lot of sort of candids, off the cuff portraits. And we were both saying, it'd be good to find someone who's got that edge that can stare down, stare down a lens and not feel
awkward.
Yeah. So we both clocked her at about the same time. So I love that you can kind of see him going, oh, great, a subject. And that's exactly what I was feeling too. But it wasn't, what's lovely about working with the Nikon family is that there isn't that edge of competitiveness that you might get at maybe a workshop of photographers who aren't connected in quite the same way, or in maybe other environments. But I don't know, I'd say on the whole, photographers, we get on, don't we?
I agree. You put two creatives in the room and they're going to generally have, get on quite well.
Yeah. But so there isn't that sense of like, oh, I've got to get the shot. No, I've got to get the shot. And mine's going to be better than yours. They're going to be different. And I think what's beautiful about the Nikon family is that we are all very different in our styles and approaches. I've seen his shots of the same subject, and they're very different. So it's
But what I found interesting from the photos that you've taken today, and when you're considering the sort of like timeless approach to the images that you're trying to create, is what you're doing here and what you've done in all the other stories is you're not taking a subject of a model, right? That's not something which you're doing. What you're doing is you're effectively telling a story. And this comes back to what you were talking about earlier when you were talking about actors and performers. So, and being a performer is you're in there. And I think this really shows that philosophy. I don't even know how I mucked up that. The philosophical approach that you've applied to it, and I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very drawn to liveness. We talk about in performance studies. The live moment that can never be repeated, and those are the moments I'm really drawn to. Whether I'm shooting weddings or endurance sports, swimming, music, it's that kind of unrepeatability that I find really exciting. We haven't really touched on it, and I feel like we need to touch on it a little bit more, is the fact that you specialise in LGBTQ weddings. What's that like for you? Is there a reason why you focus more on LGBTQ weddings, or? I think initially there were a few reasons, and it's just quite naturally grown that way, and people are quite naturally just drawn to who they're drawn to. So I think initially one of the reasons was that I feel great around other queer people, around other LGBTQ plus people. I feel at home in that environment, and that helps me to blend in. I think for anybody starting out shooting weddings, there's a tendency to just take any wedding you can. And this is not to say anything negative about any of my early weddings, but just that after a while you do want to feel that you have a place somewhere. Having said that, obviously the LGBTQ plus community is not one homogenous group. There are lots of different types of people within that, and I'm still finding that it's quite interesting. I mean, the thing I find really interesting about my work is trying to fit into those spaces where you might otherwise not be invited. Very wealthy wedding in the Cotswolds, very wealthy wedding in the south of France, and you just think, what am I doing here? And then a dirty East London boozer, and you think, all right, okay,
I can do this. I am I'm down for this.
But we're not a homogenous group. However, there is a sort of sense of a little bit of a shared experience, a little bit of a shared understanding, and respect there. And also, I think for me, it's just important, I think, to photograph history as it's happening in whatever way you 100%. Do, whatever your interests are. And I'm still, every time I shoot an LGBTQ plus wedding, I'm still struck by the fact that it's only been 10 years. And for trans and non-binary people, they still don't have equal rights. And so there's a sense of photographing history as it happens, and that's a privilege. That's a real privilege. It's 100%,
and and that's just a really general, interesting perspective on it all, really, because you're right. The rights to for LGBTQ people to actually marry has only recently become more and more effective. And it comes back to what I was saying earlier about the study of love, and what I find fascinating about LGBTQ weddings, and I wish I'd done more of them whilst I did weddings, is that because for a long time you had that kind of suppressed thing, and I think some couples still get some of that even till today. I think what you get there is a more honest form of that love that you want to study effectively.
Yeah, and a lot of different expressions of love from often chosen family.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, and I think I think seeing that play out is just lovely.
100%, yeah.
To the point sometimes it's so lovely, it's almost sickening. I mean, the wedding over the weekend was so beautiful. The readings were so meaningful. And after a while, you just think, oh my God, I'm literally so sick of love. I can't cope. Yeah. It's too much. It's so beautiful.
One of my favourite weddings that I've ever done. I did the photography for. I'm not a photographer. I don't consider myself a photographer.
You don't consider? I've seen your frames just now.
I know. I'm actually. I'm not. I wouldn't consider myself a photographer. I can do photography, and as I do this channel more and more, I'm getting more into it. So I can probably start calling myself a photographer.
Yeah,
but the wedding that I enjoyed most, and it wasn't an LGBTQ wedding, it was actually a wedding between a Muslim and a Sikh. And with that wedding in particular, the family didn't actually show up. Well, they showed up as a sort of like in the background to certain events, and they were some of my university friends, and the people that were invited to the reception, it was just the most kind of, these were really light people. It was the most kind of like outward expression of just like love, compassion, friendship, and just a complete awe of these people because they were so liked in those individual ways. And I think in the LGBT community, and because you were talking about found family, I think that's a massively important part to those weddings. And I feel like that's what makes them special, is because you've got that kind of like found family kind of like thing where the people that want to be with you, the family that want to stay with you in that kind of like environment, they stay with you, and because of that, then you get a much larger and much better and much more compassionate kind of like look into it.
And I think just to talk about weddings for a second, that I tend to tell couples that if they don't want to invite certain family members, just don't, because again, if you're looking for those authentic images, that's going to come from being around the people that you feel yourself around, you 100%. Feel like your authentic self with. And if that isn't your immediate family, it's okay. It's okay to separate the day maybe into like a ceremony and then a big party with your friends, but it's like you're going to want to feel comfortable, and bringing those people together is just
because I'm getting married soon, and I'm actually going to be eloping.
Oh, good for you.
Won't get too far into the details of it, but it's more just kind of...
We're just to a wedding planning podcast.
Yeah, wedding planning with Stuart and Jess. Let's do it. No. Amazing.
Feed your photographer, first of all. That's
is there anything? I feel like we could talk forever. We've got half an hour before this place closes. Like I don't actually know how long we've actually been talking for. It's not to say I'm actually bored or anything like that. I could genuinely talk like this for a long time.
Sure.
Anything else you want to say about weddings?
About weddings? No. I think we're good for weddings.
I think we freaking... To be fair, we've destroyed it so far, so let's give a fist bump.
Right.
Next thing, cameras. What cameras do you use for doing the... what camera gear do you use for doing your photography in general?
Yeah, so recently for my gear, I've paired it back. I've leveled up and paired back at once.
Ooh.
So I'm shooting with the Z8, and I was previously shooting with two bodies on a holster, but I'm now shooting primarily with one all day, and I've gone back to shooting with a 24-70 2.8, which is what my setup roughly used to be. I used to shoot with a D750, and I'd have a D700 in my bag. Don't know if you know that camera, but it's
D700.
It's a classic.
It's a classic. One of the boys here actually swears by the camera because he used to just throw it in the shower whenever it got like sandy and stuff like that, and it just came all off, and it was just
it's a proper worker. It's beautiful. But that was my former setup, and then I got really into shooting with primes and two mirrorless bodies, but I'm shooting mostly with the Z8 and the 24-70 now, and I'm feeling a lot more free to move around and chat to people, and I'm just loving the Z8. It's first of all, talking about checking cameras in showers, I haven't done that. with the Z8. I wouldn't do that.
No.
During one of my foot photography sessions in
the local beach.
No.
I like taking pictures of feet, folks.
But I was shooting an outdoor swimming event for a company called Level Water, who I shoot for, who do these endurance swims. Absolutely incredible to shoot. And we were out on the beach down in Bantham Beach. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the heavens just opened on us. And I had the Z8 with me. And I ran back to the little tent where they have towels for the swimmers. And I swaddled it like a newborn child. And I thought, oh my God, this is its first proper day out on the job. And I've just soaked it. And it was absolutely fine. Yeah. It was absolutely fine. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but you always worry, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, like 100%. Like some of the things that camera has been through up there, I think it's due to be retired soon. I don't know how I'm going to retire it because it's gone through such a lot. But I used to do like slow motion.
It's in the room with us.
I know, right?
They can hear us.
I think cameras have a soul.
Oh, that's nice.
Philosophy. But what's it called? I used to do a bunch of slow motion shots, and a big part of it was throwing all this like glitter stuff up in the air and letting it land all over the camera.
Amazing, that sounds fun.
It was really cool shots, but I'm not surprised that it's she's struggling. She needs to go into retirement, I think.
Yeah, my Z8 hasn't got any glitter on it. No. Which I think is a sign.
The Z8 was actually did kind of just like thing, but we tried out the Z8 on the camera, on the channel. Brains melting apparently. On the channel, I liked it. I was surprised that I liked it because, again, you're talking about kind of like stigma when it comes to everything. Like I was a Canon shooter, then I was a Sony shooter. I've never really done Nikon.
Yeah.
And I worked in a camera shop, so like, although yes, I shoot Sony, I do have the perspective that it's about the feeling of the camera, and if it makes you feel good, and then the specs are an added bonus. And I genuinely felt really good with the Z8. I thought it was an exquisite camera.
It is an exquisite camera, and it does feel good in your hands. I mean, I was previously hand holding smaller mirrorless bodies. I shot with the Z7 II and the Z6, and both of those I felt quite comfortable just holding them handheld. The Z8, kind of feel like I need that wrist strap. Don't want to drop it. It's a little bit weightier, but it's a comfortable weight. It's it's a good midweight between the Z9, which I personally find is just too heavy for a long day.
There's something about having something that weighs as well, though.
Yeah, I think so, to just ground you. Yeah. But there's so many features that are just unbelievable that I've tried out. In Iceland, I was shooting some slow shutter waterfalls, but I didn't bring a tripod. Who doesn't bring a tripod to Iceland? I mean, it's just like maybe put one in your bag.
To be fair, I didn't. When I went, no, I didn't. So when I went, I was like, we had a good chance of the Northern Lights, which is like lifetime experience, right? And I didn't bring a tripod.
Same. This is what happened to me.
What I ended up doing is, I think, the people I was with at the time, we built just like a pedestal, and then we put stuff on there, and then we put the camera on top of it, or it might have just been on the van that we were driving in.
A van is a good shout.
But it's cool.
I had the same experience, and it was just really amazing. Two things about shooting with that camera. Number one, autofocusing at night. We did see the Northern Lights. Did get the best photos I could have. We were on the side of the road. We just happened to see them, and we thought, right, let's stop and get some shots. Didn't have a tripod, but the autofocus was incredible. And I managed to get something. Which I don't think I would have been able to without that camera.
No, fair enough.
And also, on the way back, just before the Northern Lights, stopped at yet another gorgeous waterfall. You get, again, a bit like weddings, you get sick of the beauty after a while. You're just like, oh my God.
That's the thing about, like, literally wherever you go, like, as you get out of the airport and you head to the main city, it's just like, that's a picture, that's a picture, that's a picture. And it's just like absolutely stunning in that place.
I think I took more photos than I did look with my own bare naked eyes. Do you know what I mean? You're just kind of, which is always an odd, disorientating feeling.
100%.
But we stopped at a waterfall, and I didn't have a tripod, but I wanted to try and just see how I could possibly get a little bit of a slow shutter thing going on. And I handheld the camera, and at 20th of a second, and there are two people in the foreground, and it's sharp, and I'm not a steady hand.
No.
We talked about coffee intake. I mean, I
basically get through the day on caffeine.
So it's got amazing in-body stabilization that allowed me to just about pull off that shot. I mean, it's not something, you know, I think if you zoomed right in, you might think, it's a bit off.
Fair enough.
But it's some great features that just made it easier.
100%.
You know?
So you got the Z8. What else you got?
Z8. So, and then I have been using the ZFC a little bit, and then I would love the new ZN that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, it's good. I don't really know that much about the specs of it, and once we actually able to use it on the channel, I will be really happy because I do genuinely want it. But when it came to the DF, it's kind of the next version of the DF. Like, do you know the DF?
Yeah.
So the DF was interesting because they actually got a particular company to make the sensor. So I would be interested. I need to look more into it. I've been so busy.
Yeah.
But I need to look more into it, see if they've actually got the same company to make the sensor, because the DF sensor was particularly awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll look out for that when you get your hands on one. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. But I think the reason why I honestly think it's going to do well is we live in a time where, and it comes back to this as well, we live in a time where we focus too much on, or we are made to focus too much on the next technological breakthrough.
Yeah.
Be it AI, generative film, which, you know, is still AI. The next highest camera spec and all of that. But I think what companies are starting to see is a return to what was. So it's why film photography's got popular. It's why Polaroid, from a company, I know it's come back, and it's come back for a long time now, but it's a company which was going under, and then suddenly it started getting more and more popular again. And it's getting like more and more booming, and it will continue to be that way, because I think what you have out of like sci-fi kind of like crazy tech, and it's really cool to have that, but what you get out of a retro kind of inspired kind of vinyl film, you get something more real at the end of it. And I think that's the next thing I think is going to be big for the next, for like photographic and all of this, is what's real, not what's a bunch of digits. Do you get what I mean?
I think in terms, so the other thing I've got in my bag is the Nikon FM2, which I'd wanted for years.
That's awesome.
It's beautiful, but it's bloody hard to use compared to the Z8, which has incredible autofocus tracking. So switching between is a little bit, again, disorientating. So I'm kind of suddenly manually focusing and really thinking about light metering, as opposed to just having a piece of kit that will just do a lot of the thinking for you. But I do think there's something really lovely about letting go of technical perfection when you're shooting film. I put a poll on my Instagram recently to ask photographers who shoot film as well as digital, who shoot a bit of hybrid, is it honestly so you can just, hands on heart, let go of trying to capture a perfect image and actually just go, never mind, it's blurry, it's out of focus, there's a, you know, and it actually doesn't matter.
Que sera, whatever will be. I think that's it. I think a big part of film photography, at least for me, are the mistake shots that suddenly turn out to be
the best.
Like the best photos. Like I had a shot in roller film that I put together for an ad recently. It was a random double exposure.
Amazing.
And I remember taking the shot and I was just like, wow, I really like this, because I saw it was on a 50mm big brush, and then there was a hole in the middle, and there was this old guy sat on a bench. And I was just like, this is a great way to tell a story here. So I'll take that photo. Go to get it developed. Turns out that photo is the one that's gone to the double exposure, and it's actually captured another shot where I was trying to compose this older guy and this younger guy together, and the younger guy was walking, the older guy was sitting down, and it's kind of like two separate life paths, and they kind of mixed together, and random chaotic moments like
and
that.
You couldn't have planned it, could you?
No. And as much planning that I went into my head, being like, I want to create some really awesome photos, and it did that, but somehow made the photo mean more because it wasn't what I was expecting, and it became more special because of that.
Yeah. Can I pull up some wedding photos?
Yes.
Great.
Sorry, have I jabbered on a bit too much?
You haven't at all, but it's just made me think a little bit about how I think. So we're just talking about film and how it's playful, and there's a sort of element of chance. And I've been trying to find a way to bring that approach into my digital work without it being too contrived, and to actually just be a little bit more flexible and fun with what I'm doing, rather than over composing. And I think these images from this weekend do it. I mean, these drag queens are just amazing. This is one of the greatest things I've seen at a wedding. Sparks flying. I mean, it was just...
Oh, my days. Was it like one of those...
axle
grind
thingy.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it, but it was incredible. And just some moments of chance, really. And also, the other thing I think is back is the Dutch tilt. So you heard it here first, right?
I've always been at feet and that's going to be the title. Feet and the Dutch tilt.
Feet are the windows to the soul, and
the Dutch tilt
is back.
The Dutch tilt is back.
No, I mean, I for years felt like really embarrassed if I ever accidentally tilted a little bit and it wasn't perfectly straight. But let's face it, I'm not perfectly straight by any stretch of the imagination. So let's just go with it.
Let's just go with it.
Can't help it if we're tilted. Christine and the Queens.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So no, I just wanted to just bring these up really and talk a little bit about.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, talk about that. Talking about trying to have a bit of a filmy vibe without it feeling like that sort of looks like film era too much. Actually, more
I'm
about...
a massive fan of grain as well. Grain is a big thing.
Of grain too.
Yeah, probably a bit too much, but I do love a bit of grain.
Do you play with the denoise feature?
No, I don't.
No, in Lightroom.
Yeah, should I?
No, not if you like grain.
I like grain too much.
No.
The thing is, all right, so I don't even know. This is going back in time now. Stuart Lee Furbank, you talking about mucking with the denoise thing. I'm going to type in 6 letters. Six letters. I'm going to go with 6. It's probably not. That you've probably not heard of in a very long time.
No, what are they going to be?
Flickr.
Oh. You're going to pull up your old Flickr? I'm here for this. See, this is now vintage, isn't it? This is
now, and this is, photos that I took back in the day. So I started doing gig photography.
Nice.
And for some reason, and I look back on the photos that I took back then, and I was just like, I hate it being grainy. But grainy is what makes images.
Yeah.
And I just took all the noise out of just like the images that I enjoyed. Sort of thing. But it's a great kind of chance to see kind of where you have been. I mean, this is a St. David's Day, and nice. Look at I've got the grading completely wrong here. Doesn't look right. It's too dark, and temperature not done on these ones particularly well. And this was comic.
But it's great to look back, isn't it? On your
it's
own.
Great to look back on kind of your own stuff. I have not seen this photo. This was one of my favourite photos. That was the first one I ever posted. And it's a busker of a street. And then one of the first jobs that I started doing in university was actually filming buskers on the street.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
I have not actually seen that. I need to actually...
Is Cardiff quite friendly towards buskers?
Yeah.
I thought it was,
you don't need... From what I have gathered through working with buskers and stuff like that, you don't need to have licenses or that here. They have a team that goes around and make sure, people are doing things correctly and stuff like that. But yes.
Yeah, but no, the denoise feature, it makes everything feel quite plasticky. And I think what's beautiful about film is it reminds us that it's okay if something's grainy.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you've walked from you've ran inside after being outside and the environment's changed and you've not had time to quite adjust your settings perfectly, and there's a bit of an error there. Does it matter? Does it take away from the moment?
Not at all.
Not necessarily. So I don't know. I think personally not using denoise feature, can imagine it would save people in certain situations.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, final questions.
Okay.
Sorry to cut it short. I really wish we started at the start of the day. Then we could have had like a 5-hour-long podcast of us just talking, just like brilliant stuff all to the time. Another time. As somebody looking to get into, let's say, your area or a creative field, is there anything that you would want to say to them that you'd want to have known before you started? So any advice that you'll give them?
So I've been teaching first-year students this week, actually, at Bournemouth University. And one thing I've been reminding them of is the importance of finding what your why is. Yeah. And also to think, your reason for doing something, which, of course, they're first-year students. They're not sure yet. But it's about kind of keeping that in mind while they go off on their journeys of discovery, bless them.
Yeah.
So thinking about what your why is, and also realizing that you really can shoot what you love to shoot.
Yeah.
You know, if you have particular interests or a bit of a niche kind of something you love, and we all have, you know,
Yeah.
things that we're into
Yeah.
that other people might not be. I think finding that voice can happen if you do focus on shooting what you love.
Yeah.
It was great to spend time with Amy Shaw at Goodwood. She loves classic cars. She just loves them, and she's made it. You know, she's made a career out of it.
Oh.
I love drag queens amongst other things, and you know, it's
Yeah.
I think it's
Fair enough.
pursuing your interests, and then you know, work is fun.
Yeah.
Most of the
Work is fun.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts there?
I think that's.
It has been really cool today.
It's been fun.
Like, I didn't go into this expecting any particular thing, but like, it's been a really awesome conversation. I've definitely gone away from this wiser, I think.
Me too. And I have to say as well, like, I'm constantly pleasantly surprised by this in the industry.
Yeah.
But I had a little bit of a worry that as a girl in the industry, coming on to talk about gear.
Yeah.
There's an intimidation there because traditionally, if you're talking about your forums, your Facebook groups, there's often
also,
a lot of people that are willing to just sort of, and at weddings and events, people say, well, you don't know your aperture from your elbow, mate. And you think, you know, you get that sense of imposter syndrome. But I'm constantly, like, pleasantly surprised by guys in the industry that are just like, no, let's talk about cameras.
Let's talk about cameras.
Let's talk about cameras.
Trust me, the first thing guys want to talk about is their cameras. If they've got the cameras out, it's just like, let's talk about the cameras.
But without it being patronising.
Without,
just 'cause I'm a girl,
no, exactly,
you know?
100%. I mean, well, the thing is, you know, it's one of those things where you can go about judging people that you don't know if they know what you know about.
Yeah. I'm with you.
I'm with you. You're getting there. And at the end of the day, you need to just accept that there are other people out there that may not fit within your kind of ideas of norms. I mean, for a long time, and I think we can talk about it. If not, we'll probably get shouted at by Nikon for saying this. And
I think they're aware of. I think they're aware
you know,
of
for
it.
a long time they were considered old men, kind of, you know, cameras. And there's nothing wrong with old men. There are loads of them out there. But also, I think it's important to have diversity. I think it's important to have diversity within the creative environment. And
if you look at the creators that are involved with Nikon, there's such diversity there in terms of what we shoot, but also in terms of who we are, what our backgrounds are like, whether we our class differences, race differences. You know, it's all there, and I think that's really lovely. And actually, then we come together, we have different perspectives, we all learn something, you know. Yeah. Interesting.
This has been a really good conversation.
I
could continue.
Chat.
I feel like next time what we'll do is just get like a bunch of pints, and then we'll just like freaking gas for ages.
That sounds like a podcast.
Been really awesome. We'll have to arrange a part 2 sometime.
Amazing.
And thank
Thanks
you.
so
Let's give a fist bump.
Really good to hang out with you.
Yeah, really awesome. Cool.
Amazing. I love that big time.
That was
a really good chat. We went everywhere with that, didn't we?
This camera died, but it's fine.